All right, everybody, welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we are both going to be ranking our top 10 cornerbacks in the NFL, and we will get into the very relevant and very heated debate of who's the best cornerback in the NFL. It's a very relevant topic right now. A lot of heated discussions going on by former NFL players on Twitter, and we were really excited to talk about this one. How are you, Josh?
Yeah, this is fun. It is a newly brought up, hot topic going on right now. And a lot of Twitter beef going on. So it's fun. It's exciting. I'm excited to see your top 10. I know my top 10 is going to be completely different. This is such a sensitive subject for a lot of people. A lot of people get really passionate about corners, but it's all over the board, it's all over the board for who's the best. But let's just get right into it. Let's do our top 10. Let's see where we're at. Let's see how we're feeling about them. And this is going into 2023 season. That's kind of how we're ranking it too.
Yeah, there's so many corners, man. And something to definitely keep a note of is that cornerback is by far the most volatile position in the NFL. Almost no cornerback in recent history has consecutively been the top corner for multiple seasons in a row. It's just not really doable. In today's modern NFL, these offenses are too lethal, but there's always a new top corner every year. And I'm excited to get into this. Let's hear your number 10 corner.
So my number 10 is this one's going to hit close to home for me. Very underrated, very not talked about, not a household name, but it's going to be Michael Quincy Davis, Chargers corner number 43. He is drastically underrated. What he did last year, I mean, was just, it spoke for itself. And no one, the interception stats weren't there. I mean, if he would have had five, six interceptions, he'd been talked about more. But the dude showed up. He led the league in forced incompletions last year. I mean, and you watch him. He goes out there. He can play press. He can play quarters. He can play zone. I mean, and he can come up and stop the run. I mean, this dude, his skill set is very underrated. He had a poor 2021 season, but really he came into his own in 2022. Got comfortable in that Staley defense, and he really started to shine. And I think we'll see even better things this year. And I think, he's not a household name. He's not a popular name for being on the top 10, but watch the tape. It speaks for itself. Michael Davis is underrated.
That's bold, man. He's definitely underrated. I'd agree. He had a really good season last year. He's not a top 10 corner in the NFL. I'm just going to say right now, I'm going to give you
Cap.
guys all a disclaimer. He's not a top 10 corner in the NFL. But Michael Davis was really
Oh,
good last year. And like you said, he's really good at coming up and stopping the run. And he was good in coverage last year, too. So I definitely agree that he should be talked about way more. But I mean, there's a lot of corners that have to be above him, to be fair.
you watch. I mean, the interception totals weren't there. I mean, he wasn't a Tariq Woolen and didn't pick him, get six interceptions. But I mean, leading the league in forced incompletions is pretty cool stat. He's kind of he's solid all over the board. His run defense was good. His pass coverage, his passer rating. He was really good, and it's kind of fun. I'm a big Charger fan, so I gotta watch him a lot. And honestly, one of the most untalked about reasons why the Chargers lost that game in Jacksonville is because Michael Davis got hurt in the second quarter, towards the end, towards halftime, and never returned. And that's when Trevor Lawrence was really able to start picking apart that defense. So I mean, it if people would have noticed and watched, I mean, it was just drastic what a difference he made to that defense when he was on the field.
Yeah, great 2022 for Michael Davis. I'm excited to see if he can keep it up in 2023. With that, we'll get into my number 10, and it's someone who had a really good season last year and bursted onto the scene, and technically their first season because they were injured their whole rookie season, and that's J.C. Horn for the Panthers. And I
I love
expect
that.
him and the Panthers both to just take a huge step up on defense this year with Ejiro Evero coming in as defensive coordinator. I see the Panthers being a very elite defense, and no one's really talking about it. And J.C. Horn was a borderline top 10 corner last year, and I easily see him taking the step up into the top 10 this year.
Yeah, I love that. JC Horn. I mean, I think I was looking at his stats a little earlier. I think it was some crazy. I mean, he went out there this year and he put up the numbers. I mean, there was like, whoa, gosh, I'll have to pull it up. But how many yards were thrown against him this year? That was the stat. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I mean, there was like a very minimal like yards per game and yards put up against him all season. I mean, he was pretty much locked down. and he's young. He's coming into his third season now, and I think you're going to see him take, he's going to be up there on like Pat Surtain's level, in the next coming years. But yeah, very underrated pick right there, and I really like that one, Dan.
Yeah, he only allowed a 50 passer rating last year, which is pretty incredible. And
Yeah.
I need to see him stay healthy for sure because that's his really only flaw. But let's hear your number 9.
My number 9 is going to be Charvarius Ward. This is a guy that I really, really like, and another, not super household name, but a very great, solid corner that shows up, does his job. And I think a lot of the reason people will know corners' names because of the interception totals or their names or how much they talk. Like Jalen Ramsey kind of made a name for himself. Um, but Charvarius Ward, very underrated. I mean, the dude, he only had one interception, which is tough, but I mean, overall grade of an 83, a run defensive grade, which was one of the best out of any corner at 91, and a coverage grade of 78. So, I mean, the dude is elite percentage in almost every single category. And again, this dude can play man, he can play zone. I mean, this guy is all over the field, and again, just not talked about enough. Very underrated.
Yeah, he came right over from Kansas City and just plugged in perfectly as the Niners CB1 last year. And if it wasn't for him, they might have the worst secondary in the NFL. He really carried that secondary, and I expect him to do the same this year. He's really good in that scheme, and I think he's going to take another big step up this year. I have him right outside of my top 10, around 12. So I like you having him in the top 10, though. He's great.
Yep. All right, let's hear your number 9.
All right, my number 9 is someone that I'm interested to see if you have on your list, but that is Trayvon Diggs, the corner for the Cowboys. He's not,
I couldn't do it. I'll be
yeah,
honest. I love Trayvon Diggs. I think his ball skills are elite. I just don't think he's an elite corner. I think you see him getting burned way too many times. But I mean, he makes up with it because the dude is a difference maker with turning the ball over. But I mean, ball skills don't make you a top 10 corner, in my opinion.
yeah. I think I'm a little higher on Trayvon Diggs, who's definitely not necessarily a lockdown corner by any means, but I mean, last year he really did improve. He played a more calculated way of football, and his ball skills are special. Like you mentioned, he played less careless last year. He like pick sixes can't be valued, man. Pick sixes are literally the biggest game changing,
They are. They
game
are.
flipping play in all of sports. And Diggs produces them at a pretty immaculate rate, a higher rate than anyone. And it's definitely valuable. And just last year, I agree with your stance, but last year he really did take a step up and he was allowing less and not really just swinging for the fences and jumping at everything. So I think he took a little bit of a step up, and Dan Quinn's the one of the best defensive coaches, and I expect him to be a top 10 corner this year.
Yeah. The ball skills and the traits are all super elite. There's no reason he can be. I just like to see, him not get torched as many times as he seems to be getting torched. But I mean that, yeah, like you said, I mean, when it comes to game changing plays, Trevon Diggs is probably number one in that stat all day long. I mean, the dude's turning the ball over all the time. He just seems to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, there's definitely a negative narrative surrounding Trayvon Diggs because of how much he allows and the touchdowns he allows. But I think I am a little bit higher on him, and I think that hate kind of goes too far. But let's get into your 8.
So my number 8 is going to be AJ Terrell. I feel like he had a pretty down season in 2022. I don't think that reflects who he is or the player he is. I mean, his 2021 season was fantastic, and the dude was top 5 at that point. But I think we're going to see a big step up again this year, and he's going to get back into his all pro shape. But AJ Terrell, I mean, the stats last year again weren't very good. Overall grade of a 63, run defense of a 67. Coverage of a 61, not elite. I don't really feel like that falls on him. I feel like he was asked to do a little bit too much in 2022, and I feel like it's more of the defense's fault. But AJ Terrell, if we're going based off predictions and everything, this dude is a top 10 corner in the league, hands down, and I could not put him on this list.
Yeah, he's just such a good cover player. He's one of the better coverage corners, and I had him right outside of my top 10, and I feel really bad about it. He was like the one player I hated not having in. He really just wasn't great last year, and I do agree it was totally because of the Falcons defense. And now that I think about it, Jesse Bates next to him, he's definitely probably going to return as a top 10 corner this year, and the Falcons will be a much more competent team. So I like that a lot, you having him at 8, and I think he's definitely capable.
Yes, sir.
And then with that, we'll get into my number 8, and that is, interestingly enough, we each have 3 different corners to start our lists off. That shows how different or how many good corners there are. But mine is Marshawn Lattimore, the very established Saint. I've loved this guy for years. He's a dog, and I feel like he's starting to kind of get underrated. He probably isn't talked about enough at all. He's just, like I said, he's a complete dog. He has that mentality. He has that Saints mentality, and he just embodies it. It doesn't really matter who's on the opposite side of the field of him, because he's just always holding down that's his side of the field, and he's trash talking. And Marshawn Lattimore is always shutting people down. So I gotta have him up there.
Marshawn Lattimore has been at the top of his game for a long time, and you can plug him in at number 7 for me, Dan.
Okay.
Now I'll have our first guy somewhat close, but yeah, Marshawn Lattimore has shown up and been a dog for years, and he's not as loud as you'd say a Jalen Ramsey, but this dude shows up and he performs, and he's just all around. I mean, there's nothing. He's one of the most versatile corners in the league. You just kind of plug him in, and he's going to shut whoever he's on down. And yeah, I mean, his play just doesn't really seem to drop off for me at all. Every time I watch him, I feel like he's just one of the more consistent guys. You see a lot of these other guys who've been in the league quite a bit longer. Their play start to decrease. But I mean, Marshawn Lattimore, I feel like still playing at his best level. I mean, a 70 coverage grade, not his best year, only 1 interception, but he's quiet. I mean, not a lot of teams are throwing his way. Not a lot of teams are looking at him. So, those grades can kind of be fudged by, not getting thrown at.
Yeah, he really is just one of the more fun corners to watch. And like you said, he doesn't get thrown at too much, because the corners opposite of him are Bradley Roby and some rookies like Adebo and Taylor. So there's definitely other options that people are throwing at. But I love Lattimore, and he's been doing it for years, man. And then I guess with that, we'll just get right into my number 7. And I know it's someone that you really love. I think you're going to be a little bit higher, but it's Denzel Ward, man. I really love Denzel Ward. I had him a little bit lower, and the more I was thinking about my list, I just kept inching him up the list, and he's just a dog, man. Like Jamar Chase faced, I'm pretty sure he faced Surtain, Sauce, and Jalen Ramsey all last year, and he said that Denzel Ward was the best corner that he faced all year, and I believe him, man. Denzel Ward is a dog, and he's been one for years, and he's just always mirroring receivers. And that corner room in Cleveland with Newsome and I'm blanking, but their corner room is incredible, and I'm really excited for Denzel Ward again.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, they're going to be awesome. It's kind of funny you say that. I actually have him here at number 6. Talk about a dude that plays with his head on fire. I mean, this guy's coming up and he wants to hit you. That's one of the things I loved most about Denzel Ward when I watch him. I mean, sometimes he gets a little reckless. I mean, he's flying in there with his head on fire and missing some tackles. But I mean, this is a guy who's just, again, he's a player you'll want on your team. I mean, he's a defensive leader. He can cover, he can come up and lay the wood in the run game. And he's just, so consistent, so good. And a lot of the times when I look at PFF's grades, you get a little discouraged when you look at Denzel Ward only had a 56 overall grade. I don't feel like that reflects the way Denzel Ward plays. Some of these are just kind of stupid, the way they grade things. But Denzel Ward definitely outplays what his grades are. And this guy, talk about if you want to line him up man-to-man coverage, he's going to go up there and he's going to punch you right in the mouth, and he's going to, it's going to be a battle all day long. And that's the guy that I want on my sideline in my corner, who I want on my team.
Yeah, I mean, no receiver would want to go up against Denzel Ward ever. No one would ever be excited for that matchup. And with that, we'll get into my number 6, and it's someone that I'm really high on, and it looks like he might not be on your list, and it's Tariq Woolen, who...
Holy shit. I have him one spot above you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. Wow.
Oh my gosh. It was 3 different, and then all of a sudden it's the same.
Wow. I'll take it. All right. Well, I guess I'm not as high on him, but he was just so freaking shut down last year. And you add Devon Witherspoon on the other side of Woolen. I mean, I don't have words to describe that duo. That is incredible. I mean, no one was throwing at Woolen last year because they couldn't. I mean, because they could just throw at other people in Seattle. But now Witherspoon on the opposite side of Tariq Woolen is going to be definitely the best young corner duo in the NFL. It'll definitely develop into the best corner duo in the NFL soon. And that is really, really exciting. And he was just so electric last year. He had a 78 coverage grade um, on PFF, and he had 6 interceptions, which was the most in the entire NFL. So just love him. He's an athletic freak, huge, fast, and I see him progressing even more this year.
Oh yeah, this dude is fast, tall, athletic, and young. I mean, these are all the traits you want from your corner. And he goes out there in his rookie season and leads the league in interceptions. I had to have him on my list. I think it's funny that the last three guys have just had one slot higher than you every single time. But yeah, I couldn't not put Tariq Woolen on my list. I mean, this is a corner going into a second year, and with those ball skills and that height and that speed, he's too good. And yeah, you add Devon Witherspoon to the other side, and this Seattle defense is starting to look really scary, and you're not going to want to throw their way. And he was kind of targeted a good amount of times, and I think teams started to realize we can't be throwing at this guy. He's getting interceptions. He's shutting us down. And he's so tall and physical that he's like built in a lab for a corner. And this is the guy that you want on your team. But yeah, I had to have him at my list. I had to have him top five. I think he was too good not to be top five.
Yeah, and speaking of all the Twitter beef that we mentioned at the top of the show, it was mostly just Darrell Revis and Asante Samuel picking unnecessary beef at Sauce Gardner, and then Asante Samuel was very imminent that Tariq Woolen was better than Gardner, and then that kind of started a really big argument. And it is kind of funny because I remember Asante Samuel or not, sorry, Darrell Revis and Richard Sherman having beef years ago, and it was with the Jets and Seahawks, and now it's Tariq Woolen looks like a young Sherman, and then we've got Sauce that looks like a young Darrell Revis. So it's a pretty fun parallels going on right now. But yeah,
For
these
sure.
two corners are going to be just dominant for years to come, and I'm so excited.
All right, who you got at your number five, Dan?
All right, with number 5, we've got someone that's been up here for a long time, and that's Darius Slay. He's probably a top 5 corner in the NFL again last year, which is incredible. He was just fantastic, 78 coverage grade. How many interceptions? He had 3 interceptions, but he was alongside James Bradbury, so they had a very shut down corner duo. I almost had James Bradbury in my top 10, but he definitely. By the way, James Bradbury was a top 10 corner last year. He was probably closer to a top 5 corner last year. I kind of see him taking a little bit of a step back this year in the Eagles defense, but I think Darius Slay is still that dude, and I think he's still up there in the top 5.
100%. Yeah. Darius Slay has just stayed at the top of his game, and the dude is absolutely phenomenal. And I think it only just helps him being in that Eagles defense. I mean, he's going to thrive in that system. The pass rush is only going to help him improve. And I think he might be a little bit of might be, being a little bit better than he is because of the system and because of that pass rush. But I mean, Darius Slay has just been rock solid for the last few years. And I mean, interceptions, coverage grade, run defense, it's all kind of where you want it to be. Overall grade of a 73. But yeah, I really like that spot for Darius Slay. I do have him a little bit higher though.
Oh, sweet. All right, let's get into your number 4 then.
My number 4 is going to be Jalen Ramsey. Might be a little low for him. I do think he definitely took a step back last year. And it was I feel like it was I mean, the dude is so good. He's so good. He's such a good corner. But I do feel like he did take a little bit of a hit. And I do feel like in this Dolphins defense, I feel like he might get a little exposed. But I think Jalen Ramsey definitely was a top 5 corner. I think he will be. I don't think 4 is any slouch for him. I just have 3 guys ahead of him that I like a little bit more, and I think will surpass him. But yeah, Jalen Ramsey, his overall grade of an 86, a defensive run grade of a 91, coverage grade of a 77 is just rock solid. The dude has been the level of consistency. But I do see a little bit of a decline, I think, coming this year. But I mean, staying top 5 for 5 consecutive seasons is no slouch on Jalen Ramsey's part.
Yeah, I love Jalen Ramsey. I have him a little bit higher, so I'll talk about him in a minute. Let's get into my number 4, and I'm starting to put it together. Did you forget this guy on your list? My number 4 is Jair Alexander.
I kind of did. I know. I was thinking about him, and I was like, I kind of left him off the list. I don't know why.
Bold. That's
There's just
very
some
bold.
guys. I mean, the Jair Alexander is such a dog, but yeah, he did fall out of my list. In a in a in another one, he might be in the top 10. We'll see.
Yeah, I understand you wanted to talk about some other guys with
Yes.
less light on them. But yeah, Jair Alexander, he wasn't the best corner last year, but he was definitely solid. There were some games that he got taken advantage of, like Terry McLaurin and Justin Jefferson, for example. But other than that, he was pretty shut down, and he had 5 interceptions, tied for second. He was a 83 overall coverage grade, and he's just always going to be solid. He's the Packers' best defensive player right now, and they actually have a pretty good core with Russell Douglas and Eric Stokes. So I think Jair Alexander is going to have a really big season, a better season than he had last year too.
Yeah, 100%. My number three is going to be Mr. Darius Slay. Again, rock solid. Coverage grade is there. I mean, this dude puts up interceptions every single year. He's just such a good corner. There's not much else to talk about. We kind of already spoke about him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I expect him to keep it up and be a top 3 to 5 corner again. So pretty incredible.
Yep.
And then with that, we'll get into my number 3, which is Jalen Ramsey. So I have him one spot ahead of you. And I just think him coming into a Vic Fangio defense is literally going to be frightening. And I'm not the highest on Xavier Howard. I kind of think that he's kind of burnt toast at this point, but Jalen Ramsey will just hide everything and probably make Xavier Howard look pretty good next year, because he's still shut down. He's still, I was thinking about putting him at 2 at this list. He's an incredible player. He showed it with a terrible Rams team last year. He's going to be incredible every year, every game. He's going to be feisty, up in receivers' faces, and he's Jalen Ramsey for a reason. Everyone loves him. Everyone respects him for a reason. I can't say too much about it.
100%. All right, now we're getting into the top 2, and
Here
these
we
are
are. I don't know if I want to hear your number 2, but
sorry, Dan, but number 2 is going to be Patrick Surtain, which is no slouch on his end. No slouch on his end. Number 2 is a really good spot. Don't be too hurt about this. But yeah, Pat Surtain, another corner who I'd like to say is built in the lab. The physical traits, the speed, the smartness, it's all there from him. There's one guy who I think definitely deserves to be in the number 1 spot. But yeah, Pat Surtain, dude's built in a lab. You don't want to throw against this guy. I mean, he's going to sit up there and he's going to lock you down 95% of the time. I mean, the dude can play man. He can get up in your face, press you. He can, play deep quarters. I mean, he'll take out the entire, half of the field. You put him on your number 1 wide receiver on the other team and just forget about it. He's shutting them down.
Yeah, and I guess we'll just get into our top 2 discussion right now. I have Surtain at 1. You have him at 2. I have Sauce at 2. You have Sauce at 1. It's really close. Like, you could say they were 1A, 1B last year. But man, from a true lockdown perspective, Surtain is the guy. You can't really argue it. Surtain is currently the best coverage corner in the NFL. Like,
I'll say Sauces, dude. If you're giving me a corner I don't want to throw against, it is Mr. Sauce Gardner. That dude is just different. I mean, and he showed it. I mean, rookie season, 90 coverage grade, 87 overall grade. I mean, the dude is just, and again, the interceptions weren't there, but teams figured out pretty quick. You can't throw against him. You're not going to be able to throw against Sauce Gardner and win. It's just, it's very inevitable. It's not going to happen. He's going to shut your number 1 down. Forget about it. I don't care who he's on. If it's Justin Jefferson, whatever, he's going to shut him down. Sauce Gardner, the dude is just different. He's different to me.
Yeah, I get that. And like you mentioned, Sauce Gardner was a rookie. Surtain simply does have a larger body of work. Sauce is obviously right there and he's coming, but Surtain has just been a top corner for 2 years in a row. Sauce hasn't at the end of the day. End of story. And they were 1A, 1B. They really were. They were 1A, 1B.
Yeah, it is 1A, 1B, however you want to put it. I don't
have
think
Surtain over him because of his body of work. It's a little larger. I there's nothing that Sauce did that like surpasses him. Crazy to me, like, to put him over him after having
I do
2
think
years.
Sauce is a better coverage corner. I just think the way his hips and everything move, and the way Sauce reads the field, I do think it is just a little bit more elite than Surtain. I don't know how you don't see that. I get you're a Broncos fan. Surtain is 1B to me. He's probably 1A, 1B to everyone. And it is a big argument. It's a heated argument that people will get in. But I mean, at the end of the day, both of these corners are just fantastic. And you're very lucky that you have Pat Surtain on the Broncos and you get to root for him every Sunday.
Yeah, and I mean, he may not have as like many flashy plays as Sauce, or like have
Have
as
the
big
name
as
Sauce Gardner.
or have the
That
name
helps
Sauce
too.
Gardner, or be in New York, or be on as good of a team. But he's he's a great player, man. He's not being targeted as much as Sauce, probably for a reason. He does have absolutely flawless coverage technique. I really don't see how you
I
can
think
think
Sauce is just
that Sauce is a better
the
cover
way
player.
Sauce moves is just different, and the way he carries himself on the field. I mean, when I'm going out there, I don't want to throw a Sauce Gardner. I watch. I mean, you watch the tape, and the dude is just he is just a mirror. He will mirror you anywhere on the field. I don't care who it is, how big you are, how small you are, how fast you are. The dude is just a mirror, and he. I mean, every move he's just on you, and it's pretty amazing.
And for what it's worth, Joe Burrow also said that Surtain is the best corner in the NFL. So take that for what you will.
You know what's amazing about didn't what was Sauce's his college? He never allowed one touchdown, right? I don't think.
I
Yeah,
think he's only allowed one touchdown dating back to high school, and that was his this year in the NFL. So yeah,
yeah. That's just that's the definition of lockdown, and you don't want to throw at that. That's Sauce Gardner. I want the chain. I want the hype. Dude's number one. Dan, get out of here with the Surtain take.
he's great. He's fun to watch. He's a great corner. I just think Sertan's better. Sertan's better. Surtain only allowed 2 touchdowns last year, and they were both against Devontae Adams. I'm not gonna lie, Devontae Adams did get the better of him, but Devontae Adams will get the better of any cornerback in NFL history. Let's be honest. So I'm just not worried, man. Like, oh, I mean, it's tough to argue. We could argue this all day long.
Oh yeah, you could go on forever.
So,
It is
so
a 1A, 1B type situation. You line them up how you want. I don't think you can really get too mad at the other person for having this argument.
and just one more point for Sertan is last year Denver played more quarter half than anyone in the NFL last year, which is essentially just leaving Sertan his own half of the field on an island and moving everyone else to the other side and just letting him just shut down that half of the field. And it's just so nice for a defensive coordinator to have that flexibility, and not many teams can do it. The Vikings try to do it, and that's why they were so terrible last year. So Surtain really does help the Broncos, and he makes their defense and everyone around him a lot better. And I think Sauce will definitely become that player. I just think Surtain's body of work is what puts him ahead of it for me.
Yeah, I respect that. Do you think Sertan's going to get better under Vance Joseph, or take a step down because Elijah Evero was such a genius? You know,
Yeah, Ajiro Evero was literally
or yeah, Giro Evero. I don't know why I called him Elijah.
he was such a good coach. He was a great, I would call him a great defensive coordinator, and I would call Vance Joseph a pretty good defensive coordinator. So I don't think it'll be like a bad drop off. Like the Broncos defense isn't going to be bad. We all know that, and Sertan's still going to be really good. I don't see too much of a drop off though, because we did run a lot of cover three last year. We were 7th in the NFL in cover three, and that's Vance Joseph's bread and butter. And that's what the Broncos do, is they butter you up with cover three on the first 2 downs, and then on third down they'll just go quarter half and let Surtain do his thing and just let everyone cover. So I love Surtain, man. I love Surtain. I think he's the best corner in the NFL,
Sauce number one.
man.
Yeah, I mean we'll argue about this all night.
Yeah,
But I mean, this is a fun exercise. It's fun to see, while there's heated discussions going on, it's fun to chirp in. We took a break from doing our deep dives for a week just because we wanted to get this episode in here while it was pretty relevant. And I thought it was a fun one. I thought it was a good one to do.
yeah. I love cornerback is my favorite position in the NFL to watch. I've just always had so much respect for it. In my opinion, it's the hardest position to play, and I love watching cornerbacks. And I did want to talk about some honorable mentions because, like we said, there are so many good corners, and there were some
No,
that didn't make the list that I really wanted to talk about. And I already mentioned James Bradbury; he was right up there. DJ Reed was easily a top 10 corner in the NFL last year. He really helped Surtain. Or sorry, he really helped Sauce. That's another thing. Surtain had another rookie on the opposite side of him, and Sauce had DJ Reed, who was truly incredible. He's a shutdown corner. He was last year. He's fast, and he's one of the smarter corners in the NFL. Marlon Humphrey, it
yeah,
feels
I was gonna
crazy.
say Marlon Humphrey. That neither of us had him in our
Mhm.
top 10. Feels nuts. That dude is so
That
good.
feels crazy. Yeah,
Hmm.
Chidobe Awuzie is right there. He's been right close to a top 10 corner for the last few years. Tyson Campbell definitely took a jump last year, and he will probably be a top 10 corner this year. I think Jamel Dean, great corner. Xavier Howard kind of took a step back last year, and Stephon Gilmore was honestly super good last year, and he's going to Dallas, so I could see him being really good too.
Even Jonathan Jones. I mean, that's a
Yep.
very underrated guy who I think again will take another step forward this year in the Patriots. Who I'd
Dude,
like to
someone I
see.
wanted to say was Christian Gonzalez because I really just think he'll be a top 10 corner in the NFL
Oh,
again.
probably he'll probably do like a sauce type season. That dude's gonna
Yeah.
be locked down for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that is kind of something that's kind of inevitable at this point.
Yeah, not playing in the NFL would be so hard to put him on our top 10, but
Yeah,
I
that
think
would be
next year
wild.
we'll be talking about him on our top 10 though, for sure. It definitely been a hot take, but probably one that will happen.
100%. And then I know you like Sante Samuel a lot. He started the season off a little rocky, but he finished the season really strong, including the playoff game. He was incredible. So
Yeah,
that's
the
another
hat
guy to
trick in
keep
the
in mind.
playoff game is awesome. He's kind of in and out of the lineup a lot. Definitely a stud. I think will take some more steps forward. I think he's definitely had some learning curves in his first couple of years, but hopefully we see some of the playoff type, performances, going forward. I mean, he really was fantastic in that playoff game.
Yep. This was a super fun one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. And make sure to comment on anything who your top corner in the NFL is. Really interested to hear what you guys think, and like, subscribe, NFL Seekers podcast on all platforms. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Sir,
All right.
see you next time.
Have a good one. Peace.